Hey folks, good morning. Pastor Sean coming to you with today's daily devotion. This is the third time I've shot this video. The last two times I've gotten halfway or two-thirds of the way through the video and somebody called me and broke up the video. So I want to talk to you today about Paul. Paul is writing to the church of Corinth, and I was reading through this. I'm preparing my series called Road to Spiritual Maturity. And as I'm reading through the letters of Paul, and all of the epistles, I've come across something today that I really love. Paul's writing to the church of Corinth, and his writing is one continuous letter. When you read the book of 1 Corinthians, it was one long continuous letter that he wrote to the church of Corinth. When they canonized the Bible, they took it and broke it up into chapter and verse, and they tried to find places where they thought Paul's thought was changing and going in a different direction, and that's not always the case. Paul says in chapter 12, he says, I speak of all of these different things, and he's talking about the gifts of the Spirit, the gifts of the Spirit, and he goes through a list of gifts of the Spirit, and he's finishing it up, and then at the end of the chapter, he says, but I show you a better way. And then the first verse in chapter 13 says love. Love is patient, love is kind. And he goes through this whole litany about love because that's a continuation of his thought. What Paul is telling us is prophecy is great. Tongues and interpretation is fantastic. Words of knowledge and wisdom, faith, healing, all of these things are fantastic. But I show you something even better. Love. Love is patient. Love is kind. And he goes through all of this. Let me say this to you. I love the gifts of the Spirit. I operate in the gifts of the Spirit. Those flow in my life, and I pray for better gifts, of the greater gifts. But when it comes down to it, and I'm talking to somebody on the street, when I'm witnessing to somebody at Walmart, when I'm praying for somebody who's in a bad situation, love covers a multitude of sin. Love conquers all. What are you saying, Pastor? The gifts are not important? No. Please don't read that into what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is Paul tells us if you want to catch people, if you want to be fishers of men and draw people in, there has to be something different about you. And it's not going to be speaking in tongues. It's not going to be prophesying. It's not going to be laying hands on the sick and watch them recover. Those are all important gifts for the church. But to save sinners, you need love. Love is patient with that sinner. Love is kind to that sinner. Love, in the Old Testament, says love covers a multitude of sin. And the greatest example of love, of course, comes from the 3rd chapter of John. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. If you want to see people get saved, the Bible says it is a wise man who saves sinners. If you want to see people get saved, if you want to see people be attracted to you and the Christ that lives inside of you, show them love. I love you, and I'm praying for you. I believe God is going to do magnificent things in your life today because you are showing the love of Jesus Christ. Remember, God himself is love. God is love. Love you. Praying for you. God bless you as always is my prayer.